welcome back and tune into part 2. This is MCRC Review, and this is Esperanza coming at you. I rhymed the whole time. If this movie was made in a different time period, it would have turned out better, but it didn't, and it wasn't. So too late. Tell you why that's the case. It's because take any person from the street and ask them why, what do you think of the 80s? And they'll say, it was funny neon nonsense. That's not what the 80s was. See a neon sign and a bunch of colors and a bunch of shit and a bunch of Madonna making my ears bleed. But that's not the 80s. There is so much more to uncover underneath the surface, and all people see is the surface. And this mindset has been going on since the 2000s, and there is not one clear picture in people's minds, and they only see what they want to see about the 80s. All of this is why the movie was bad. The attention to detail was a huge thing for me, and I could tell that there was none at all from the way their costumes were designed. There was very little stitching. It was very cheap and more, it was gaudy, more in a late 70s glam rock kind of way. And it was tacky, and her hair was not big enough. There's just very little attention to detail in terms of the outward appearance. This is directly derived from millennials' outlook on the 80s and how they viewed the way people dressed and made themselves look. The 80s is a joke to millennials, and that's why this movie was a joke to us. Like I said earlier about the Madonna, the leg warmers, the neon signs, the neon everything. They ain't got no goddamn respect for the 80s, and that's why this movie tanked, and it was a piece of shit, and it disappointed me, because I am so tired of these disingenuous assholes putting that shit in the movie thinking they know the 80s, putting it into stores. I'm so tired of everyone thinking they know the 80s when they know nothing about it. They're so far away from the 80s, and as soon as they think it's something nice from back then, they think it's 80s. I'm like, bitch, no it's not. It's 80s. Newsflash! I'm so angry. I cannot even begin to finish my thoughts. So I've decided to bring on a guest, a friend of mine, known as B. Arthur Jumpsuits on Instagram, Valentina.
I'm too upset to even tell you my name, so you're just gonna have to guess, because the millennials in the 80s in one sentence, I just, like my friend was saying, they do see it as a joke. They do. They see it as people with stupidly teased hair. As if 2007 did not exist with the scene with everyone's dumbass raccoon hair. That was stupid teased hair. Okay? Paulina, that dude from the Car's wife, that was beautiful teased hair.
Paulina
Parakova, that was beautiful teased hair. Charisse Neal, that was beautiful teased hair. Pebbles, that was beautiful teased hair. Okay, teased hair is a blessing instead of some flat, wet looking. I'm just so mad. The 80s is not a joke. It was the best time. It was the height of fashion. Everything about the 80s was fashion. Everything had to do with fashion. It was like the world was Paris. Society was Paris, and it all had to do with fashion. Even if you were a straight guy, like in the metal crowd, their look wasn't just superficial. It was, of course, while everything is about fashion, at the same time, it was not superficial. The fact that they took their fashion seriously, it was a way of expressing who they were, like from the inside, especially since as musicians, of course, in that crowd, a lot of them did not come from a background that let them express themselves. Frank expressed himself with fine hair and beautiful, his own designed clothing. I see those comments on Instagram. They're not cute. They're not cute at all. Okay, they are not cute. The way you describe, they're not cute. The way you just, can you go back? I need you to delete that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just running off. Okay, it's not.
The worst outfits ever.
Start again.
From where?
Nikki 6, you don't like how he's being called ugly.
I don't like how you guys talk about my friend Frank, okay? Frank, everyone always talks about how they want to jump on Frank's dick. Okay, yes, I hear you, thirsty heifers on the Instagram and the Tumblr. You should see the blogs. You should see them. They're so thirsty for him that they still want that whack-a-mole Dutch boy, Douglas Booth. That's how much they're thirsty for Nikki 6, for Frank, okay? Frank had great clothes and he designed himself. I would love to see you walk up and down and go into your little room and draw yourself an entire outfit, an entire ensemble that is your own. No, he did that himself and he looked great. Did his thighs look good in those? Did his thighs not look good in those?
Yeah.
His thighs looked fantastic.
Yeah,
They were thick. They were thick with 2 C's, not 2 Q's, like Patrick Starr. He looks so good, and you guys are making fun of it. You know what? Millennials love being the people who are like, oh, I think everyone should be different. I think everyone should have their own vision. There's no such thing as like looking bad or whatever. And they walk outside with looking like damn idiots in a fucking animal outfit, like at 37 and 42 years old. Okay, you're practically 42 when you're 30. Okay, then you should not be outside. But my point is, you guys are like, don't be mean and everything, but when it comes to people actually being authentically creative and expressing themselves like a time period of the 80s, you all judge it. You all make fun of it. You all question it. You all go, that is weird. Yes, Taylor. Yes, I'm so sorry that your Abercrombie ass cannot see the creativity that is the 80s. Okay? You know, the problem is, while you guys always talk about how you're, so LGBTQA plus, you are not, because the 80s was nothing but LGBTQA plus. It was nothing but, like, the gay men, they were all, gay men, trans women, they were behind the entire thing. They were behind the entire 80s. They came up with everything. They were behind it all. What you see, what you're laughing at is gay fashion in a way. Yeah, that's why everything was centered around fashion expression. Fashion is expression. There's nothing. Fashion is expression. It shows who you are, and the 80s was the most expressive time, and that means, you know what, millennials? You guys are not expressive at all. You are like Soviet Union children. You were like Latvia in the 1970s. You guys have no expression. You were all uniform. You were the song, if you were the song Popular by Nada Surf, that is you. You guys are you need a whole manual. You guys have to read about aesthetic. You guys have to quote aesthetic to remind yourself to try and you have to teach yourself to be creative, and you're not really creative, and that's why you guys make fun of the 80s and you like the 90s. The 90s, why do you think all those edgy, sad boys made those bands and started singing about everyone being a zombie? And you notice no one's saying about that in the 80s? You notice everyone was like preaching with each other about being different, but in the 90s, there were people complaining about how everyone is just a zombie and like a repeat, everything like that show Daria. She's like everyone else because they're the same. You guys like the 90s because it's just like you, unoriginal.
The dirt is literally the product of our conscious world. They did not do Motley Crue a service. They did Motley Crue a disservice. Oh, hell yeah. Next Wednesday will be our very last episode. See you next time. Stay metal.